Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Abundance Tree Podcast. I'm Janice. I'm the host, or one of the hosts, and I'm here with my lovely co-host,
April Capri. Hey,
April,
family. Hey, Janice.
April Capri.
That way. No, that way.
Right there.
Let's go. The Zoom
For me,
orientation always throws me. I'm like, which way are
uh,
you? This way.
you're right here.
That's okay. I see you,
It's
girl. How
all
are you?
good. I'm good. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. It's sweater weather, so I got
Yeah,
my sweater on.
kind of, halfway, but it's coming. It's coming.
It's
Definitely.
coming. It's coming quick too. So
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
happy for the cooler weather.
Yeah, cooling off for sure, for
Yes,
sure. But
definitely.
yeah, we have a great guest tonight, so let us
We
know who
really
we have.
do.
Yeah,
So, our guest is a living testament to the power of perseverance and second chances. After 8 career changes and overcoming homelessness, he found his purpose at 53, starting Good Samaritan Home, which is a nonprofit dedicated to helping former inmates rebuild their lives. Through decades of challenges, including legal battles and community resistance, his organization has grown to 19 homes with a $2 million budget. At 61, he earned his doctorate in applied theology, and at 75, he published his debut novel, Running as Fast as I Can, which is a powerful story of overcoming adversity. His journey of calloused hands and tender heart continues to inspire others and never stop running towards their goals. We have Mr. John David Graham.
that's
It
amazing.
is amazing. Never too late to do great things and start over. Like,
Right? That's
amazing.
inspiration, inspiring me already.
Right?
Hey, John,
Hey, John.
Good.
We can't see you yet.
show yourself.
There you are.
Hey, John. Hey,
Welcome.
yeah. How are you? Can we hear you?
No, no sound.
There. How's that?
There we are.
There we go.
Welcome. Welcome back.
Welcome
This
back.
just confirms what I said about technology. So,
Hey, but
It's
you
all
made it
good.
work.
You did. It's all good. Welcome to the Abundance Tree Podcast. We're so happy that you can be with us this evening.
yeah, let
Yes.
me get
So,
this right here.
yes,
There we go. I
All
have
right.
get some flesh on me here.
right. So your bio is very inspiring. I'm an older person and I'm starting a new route myself and not giving up. We're starting new projects ourselves. So your this bio really inspired us. So we want to know about your background though. So wherever you want to start in your journey, we'd like to celebrate that.
Let me just say that there are some of us who we grew up without direction. I grew up in the mill towns surrounding Pittsburgh, and the object was you go to after high school, you go to the mill, you stay in the mill for 30 years, and then you just retire at the bar, and that's basically your life story. But
Mhm.
I wanted something different. I wanted to get out, but I didn't know where or what. And my philosophy was that we lived together at the same house, but we lived separately. We lived alone. So I had no direction. So I went to college thinking that I would, change my direction, but I didn't know what direction. So I ended up with a degree and nowhere to go. And over the next many years, I went from one job to the other with no direction. And at one point, I was even homeless
Mhm.
because I had a degree thinking I was intelligent, but I had no skills or no training. So I was unhirable or I was discontent. And this was in the 60s when we were all discontent. And it was, it's hard to explain now, but it was an extremely tumultuous time. And ironically, the current political climate is similar to 1968,
Wow.
where you have anger, you have violence, you have name calling, you have marches, you have protests, and you have political unrest. We thought we were coming apart at the seams, and that affected us. And I feel that this generation probably feels the same way. So here I was 53 years old with 3 children, a wife to support, and we had moved around hither and yon. And I could not find my niche. And in fact, I was a children's home counselor. I was a truck driver. I was a fireman. I was a building contractor. I was a journalist. I was even a minister, thinking I could make a difference. But then I realized you have to be semi civilized to be a minister. And I wasn't that good at it. So, what we ended up doing was Kathy and I, my wife, we said, what is our passion? And we determined that maybe we can help those people who are even less fortunate, who are struggling more than us. And these are the people who came to our door and we couldn't help. So we bought what was then the cheapest house in town. It was 140 years old, and started remodeling it as a homeless shelter. And we literally opened up our house to help strangers who were less fortunate than us. And one thing led to another. And the Department of Correction said, we have men and women coming from prison who are homeless. And we know if they can have a stable place that they will probably make it and not go back to jail. So we offered our home to one man and then another and another. And eventually we had several homes because the state would compensate us what we call a per diem. And so we could pay our bills that way. And over the next 19 years, actually it was 22 years, we developed 20, 19 houses. We have 19 houses now for men and women coming from prison. And it's not a halfway house. It's not a program house. It's simply more of a boarding house where we offer mentoring support. And we have right now on any given day 80 men and women in those houses. And we cooperate with other partners, the social service agencies and Department of Correction. They do the programming, we do the housing, but mostly what we do is the listening. And I think that's a critical element. So, and the truth is that I'm now 76 and I feel many days like I'm 26.
Wow.
I feel like I'm starting over. I've been given a second chance. So I'm now offering that same second chance to these men and women who probably have never had a first chance. And that doesn't negate what they've done. It just means that you paid your price. And hopefully now we want to help you till you can start over too.
Absolutely. That's so
Wow.
powerful.
That is so powerful. So many
Yes.
things I want to touch on. Well,
Yeah.
just hats off to you because that's a beautiful thing that you're doing. I'm happy that you finally found your ministry. I want to take it back to finding your niche, like, because I think a lot of people, myself included, I had a really hard time just kind of bouncing around from job to job, industry to industry until I can, and I still really fully don't know what I want to be when I grow up. What man, it's difficult. So what
Yeah.
was something that really led you, or how did you like what clicked for you? So where you was like, this is it.
When I look back, I went to a high school reunion and I met all the kids who were in school with me, and I realized that they were the son of professionals, the daughter of professionals. They were given skills just by osmosis, where they developed certain attributes that I didn't know about. So they started the race far ahead of me. And
Mm.
so at 19, 20, 22 years old, they were sprinting to the goal. And I couldn't even see the starting line. And what I realized is that they may have sprinted for 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, and then they stopped at retirement at 50. But my race is a marathon and it's a slow start, and I have to build up endurance. But I never quit running, never quit looking for that niche. And I feel that that's the lesson we share with our men and women is that you've made mistakes, but more than likely you came from a structure that had no structure. You came from a family where if you were lucky, your mother was there and realistically your father wasn't, or you might have been in foster care. So we're dealing with people who, when you say get a job, they have no idea what that means. And God bless her, Nancy Reagan, when she said, just say no to drugs, that was so naive at best. So, what we say is, how can I help you through this day? How can I help you today? And if you fail, it's like AA. You call me and I will help you. If you don't call me, I can't help. but I'll be there. Or the philosophy is that I will be at the bottom when you're there to help you back up. And sometimes it's just listening.
Right.
Sometimes it's just a safe place to lay your head at night.
Mhm.
Or a good example of this is the county reentry office has a programming where they teach job skills, how to apply for a job, how to even dress for a job, and then volunteers get them suits. And so here are these 7 men from our houses who just graduated after 8 weeks of training on how to get a job. And you could see how proud they were wearing suits they've never even seen before. And they look like transformed men. And one fellow looked like he was right out of GQ magazine. Of course, the suit was too big, but it didn't matter. His chest filled it out. He was so proud.
That's so powerful. One thing that resonated with me from the very beginning, you said that you lived in your house, but you lived separately with
Yeah.
no direction. So that's a quote from you. Just so that resonated with me because it's almost like if you have a dream or have something you want to pursue, you feel like you're alone in a way. I don't know if that makes sense. Is that what you meant? Because you really can't share all your dreams and goals with everybody because they don't understand. So that's what I got out of it. And so I was looking for direction on how to start what I really wanted to do, like start over or start something different. Other than what I'm doing currently, which I'm helping students figure out what they want to do when they graduate from high school. So I'm in a good spot to help them, and I really think that's one of my passions as well. But I wanted to do some new things, but that what you said about living separately with no direction, I resonate with that because I just feel like I can't share everything with everybody as far as what my goals are.
Well, the main character in my novel is Daniel Robinson, and he grew up in a home where the mother was mentally depressed, the father was alcoholic, abusive, and the three brothers just sort of existed together. It wasn't Leave It to Beaver. It was more like life on the frontier. And Daniel, when he was 12 years old, said, we lived in the same house. We shared the same space. We had the same last name. We ate at the same table, but we were strangers. We all lived alone together. Now, that was set back in the 60s. Now, imagine today with electronics. Kids are doing this with their phones. So they are much more alone than I was. They just don't realize it. At least we had other bicycle friends to run with. But today, kids, I think, are extremely isolated, and they're growing up thinking that social media is true, thinking that what they see on the reels on Facebook is actual reality, and it's not. And no wonder girls feel like they're not attractive enough, or boys feel like they're not strong enough, because compared to the fiction they see on social media, they're not.
Social.
So I think, quite frankly, Janice, what you're doing with your mentoring or tutoring is probably as close to what we're doing. And so you're doing it in a different avenue, but I call it the Karate Kid approach, where you mentor somebody, a young person, and you teach them how to wax on and
Right.
wax off. But what
Right.
they feel is that you care,
Right.
and they don't care what you know. They only want to know you care.
Right, absolutely.
This is true.
And yeah, because I can concur with that because I know whenever they get a job or they get accepted to college or military, I think I get more excited than they do. And they're looking at me like, whoa, you're like doing a cartwheel. And I'm like, I'm excited. I'm doing a cartwheel. And they're looking at me like, so it's very rewarding. So that's so nice. Do you like work with like the Workforce Commission as well to help uh the people get jobs as well? Like what
Well,
other agencies do you work with?
Well, we primarily work with the Department of Correction. Of course, we're contracted with them. What happened was we had our shelter, so we had experience in dealing with the homeless, and they asked us to partner, and we applied to be a vendor partner. And then we are not under their control, but we're under their accountability. So we actually run a Department of Correction program, but it's not one that is punitive, it's rehabilitative. So we work closely with the parole officers, but not to report and say, this guy did this, we want him arrested. We say, we feel that he's struggling with this. How can we help? Because the object is we want to keep you, and the Department of Correction wants to keep you out of jail. And if you're working and if you're staying clean and sober, you'll likely, number one, be paying taxes. And number two, there's great pride in knowing that you're doing something at the end of the day. And I think it's win-win for all of us. And we work with Job and Family as a partner, and the reentry office, which is part of the county, they do the actual job training. So, and the truth is, we're the only housing provider in the entire southwest corner of Ohio.
Wow.
It's actually very difficult for many people coming out.
It is. And I'm so grateful that you found this space. I feel like you're really doing God's work because the last thing that jail is rehabilitative. And so, there's really no middle ground for people, exiting that space to come back into, society. And so there is like, especially like with the affordable housing crisis, there's not really many options or places for them to go or get help. Or so I'm just very happy that you created like this safe space where they can kind of feel, comfortable
Mhm.
and be supported and just get help through their journey and getting connected to other resources like jobs. Um, and just, self-sustainability, just being okay because
The
there's not
irony
really a
is
lot
that
for that.
the irony is that I'm an introvert and I would prefer being alone, but I find myself surrounded with people. And even being on the podcast today, I'll crash afterward. But during the podcast, I feel exhilarated because we're sharing a communal conversation here about shared values. And it's exciting. I feel like my life has more meaning when I see somebody else who can catch it. So, and that's the reason I'm here today is to share that message. And I'll be quite candid. When we first started, we opened up to our first man coming from prison. He was coming from Cleveland, and we're in a rural community in Western Ohio. And it's rural, white, secluded. And of course, race came into it because Cleveland is predominant, or it's felt to be predominantly Black. And so when he came, he felt as if he was being targeted, and the community felt like they were being targeted. So there's this tension that came in.
Mm.
And so neighbors started passing petitions. There were meetings at the city council. There were laws passed. There
Wow.
were threats. We ended up, they tried to shut down our home several times. We ended up suing the city. There was even one man tried to stab me in front of the city hall. And I had police protection going to one of the city council meetings because it was so hostile because of the fear. And again, it's a great deal like we're seeing today. And ironically, Springfield, Ohio is near here. And that's where the local political crisis was focused about the Haitians eating cats and dogs, which wasn't
Yeah.
true at all.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that's exactly the sort of thing we went through because the idea was those people coming in. And we always use race as a cover, but the truth is that most people in prison are white, not Black. But the perception in the white community is it's those people. And to be quite candid, drugs changed everything because
Mm.
drugs is an equal opportunity offender. And our community is hit exactly the same as any city community with the drug, and even fentanyl and heroin.
That is a powerful statement. Drugs are an equal opportunity offender, and they
It,
are. They don't discriminate, and they tear communities of any color, size, shape, or fashion. They tear it apart. It's not a good place to be in. That's a big barrier that you had to overcome, I think, to get the community to kind of accept, because there is a lot of stigma behind, prisoners and race, and just, when people that go to jail. I think society kind of disregards them as, oh, you must be a horrible person, or whatever. But
right.
I have over time has people started to have people started to kind of warm up or kind of appreciate like what you do.
It was slow. It took several years,
Okay.
and we kept growing. We had one, two, and three houses, and then eventually we moved, expanded into Dayton, which is a large area, and we were in an area that needed a lot of renovation. So we were actually a good neighbor there, and we never had the problems in the city that we had here. So what we did here was In the winter, I made sure to take my snowblower and go and do everybody's street. And we made sure that our house was renovated from its original unrepaired 140-year-old look to what is today a Victorian showpiece. And I did all the work myself in my own wood shop because we had no money, but we had time. And so you can see behind me some of the woodwork. And this is it's supposed to look and feel like 1879. But what happened was that people saw that our house was not as bad as they feared it would be. And now I joke about it, but I say they now wave at us with all their fingers, if you know what I mean.
Right. That's a good
But
thing. Yeah.
yeah, even then, the probation office will refer people to us in lieu of jail. They'll come to our house, and we calculate that we've saved the county $1 million in jail costs. So,
Wow.
I feel that's something the Democrats can approve of because it's morally conscious, and the Republicans can approve of because it's fiscally conscious. So
And this is
everybody
true.
wins.
Because
Yeah.
recidivism is definitely a thing. The percentages are high
Yes,
because they don't have that buffer or any type of rehabilitation. I'm not going to say any, but it's not really common for them to, really rehabilitate people and get them acclimated back into society because it just, and I think that's why people go back because they don't have options. They can't get a job. They're prevented from doing a lot of things that would help them be in a better space and be able to kind of get reacclimated into society. So it's just like, well, what do you do when you're
that's right.
locked out from opportunities and nobody will help you?
The irony is that if somebody has committed a serious offense and spent 30 years in prison, he's less of a threat than the 19-year-old kid who's been out banging on the street
Mm.
because he thinks that he's smarter than you and me, and he's got a bit in him. We say he's still got another crime in him,
Mm.
and we just have to wait until he's ready. But we don't look at the offense. What we look at is, do you need a place for tonight? What we say is, are you hungry?
Gotcha.
And that's really the only question that matters.
Right.
Wow.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your success stories, if you can? Like, how long does it take someone coming in to kind of be rehabilitated and go into society, live on their own? Has that, like, can you just share some of those or?
Well, I don't keep data because generally it takes
Okay.
3 years to measure
Okay.
recidivism, but that's usually beyond our scope of because we deal with anywhere from 3 months to a year, sometimes 2 years. But what I look at is it sounds really basic, but we ask people that you can't control getting a job, you can't control getting your own apartment, but you can control making your bed. So in the morning, we ask you to make your bed and clean your room because what that says is, I did something this morning right. And it also shows respect, not just for yourself, but for your housemates. And that's what I call a pronoun shift because you went to prison because you kept saying I. But here, if you want to make it on the outside, you have to say we. How can we work together? And it's an old Navy SEAL trick where they
Yeah.
teach you that no matter how many setbacks during the day, no matter how hard the battle during the day, at the end of the day, you come back to a made bed and you say, at least I did that right.
Right. I read that book, Make Your Bed. I forgot the gentleman's name, though. I did read it, though.
Well,
The Navy SEAL that wrote
and
it. Yeah.
you can't, if you were to say to somebody get a job and go out and buy a house or get married and become a normal person, whatever that is, it just doesn't make sense. But if you say, if just go out and apply for a job today. So if I can get somebody to get a job flipping hamburgers, I'm very happy because what I say is that's the best job that you have today. Now, how do we go out? If you don't like it, let's get another one, but let's keep this one so you step up and not just walk away. And that to me is a success. So if from our perspective, if they stay with us for say 6 months and they move on to another place, then they've been successful to us. They moved in with a girlfriend, or they moved in with their family, or they got their own apartment. And with some of the fellows, what we've had to do is we developed an affordable housing program post our reentry. And here we have a boarding house arrangement where they share a house with somebody, but they get their own private bedroom, a boarding house, and they may stay with us for 10 years. Jimmy was, I think he was 70 years old, 67 years old when he came to us, and he was living on the street and he was freezing to death because his
Wow.
truck broke down and he was in the winter in his truck. And he came to live with us. And when he died 14 years later, he had said that this was the only home I ever had. Now that's a
That's
success.
heartbreaking.
Wow.
Sometimes
Absolutely.
the best you can offer is a safe place to die.
Mm.
Now,
Wow.
Walter was 16 when he was arrested, and he spent 9 years in prison. So he came to us, and he was number one. He had come from Washington D.C. and he had committed a crime in Ohio, so he was in the Ohio system with no family. And he came to us, and he was surrounded again by all these white people, but he was able to, like his grandma said, "You just keep your ass there," and he did, because his grandma told him that you stay with those people. And he stayed with us, and he got a job working as a laborer in a winery nearby because the man who owned the winery was one of our mentors. And I think that's been probably 15 years ago. He's a manager there now. Walter has several children. He's been married. So, and the truth is, he bought a house down the street from us.
Wow.
So, I rarely see Walter, but every once in a while he'll pop up and say, "How are you doing?" I'll see him on Facebook with his kids. So that's a clear success story.
And
Absolutely.
it
That's so
really
powerful. I
is.
love that.
I want to take it to the real estate side because you started with one house and then you expanded to many. Is there a way that you like, did you know about real estate or how did you start to learn about real estate to like identify what's a good property and then secure it
Well,
and all of that stuff?
well, one of my meanderings was as a building contractor. So I
Okay.
learned how to work with my hands. And of course, I learned on this house because I had to learn electrical work, plumbing, plastering. I milled my own flooring.
Wow.
Basically, I had to learn everything in the house. And then also in 2008, the housing market went to the bottom. So there were a lot of properties for sale for next to nothing. And so what we did was we had no money, but my wife inherited just a few dollars when her parents passed. And so she used that to allow us to buy a house. And with that house, we're able to increase our contract, and then we could get another house. So I was buying houses for $20,000 or $25,000 that today are worth 5 times that.
Wow.
So, but the key element is it was the right time, right place, but we were willing to take a giant leap of faith because we had to buy the houses and remodel them without the contract. We were hoping, praying that we could get this contract, but because we had done the work previously, we had a reputation. And so we were able to go from 4 beds to 80 beds over the years. So now we're able to pay our bills.
So,
Wow.
so
80
powerful.
beds.
It just goes to show
That's
you don't
amazing.
give up, just to keep going, keep pushing, keep going, That's so
There's
inspiring.
there's we're not, and I teach my staff this now. We have 10 staff, and what I tell them is we're not here for a profit. We're not here to punish. If we break even, that if I pay our bills, that's all that matters.
Yeah,
And the knee jerk reaction with all of us is to punish and say we caught you doing this. And I like to say that because you caught them doesn't mean that you have to punish them. The very fact that you caught them, they know, and and you just let them know and say, let me help you with this. So I don't want to see you lose your housing. And you'd be amazed how the soft answer does turn away hostility.
Mm.
oh,
Yeah, I know we're in a capitalistic society. Bills don't pay themselves, and you got to make money, but it's hard to put a price tag on the lives that I'll just say saved. You've probably saved more lives than you know, and definitely made an impact on a lot of people over the
absolutely,
years.
Yeah,
absolutely.
and I have to remind myself that we committed to giving somebody a temporary safe place. And so if we'd done that for 90 days or 6 months or a year, we've done what we committed to do. And what they do with it, So I believe in accountability as well as mercy. So I can help you, but I can't save you. I can only help you save yourself.
Absolutely. So powerful. So I understand that are you an author? You've written a book or two, maybe?
Oh,
Tell
well,
us
when I
about
was
that.
homeless, at one point I wrote an academic book on reentry, but the six people who read it said it was great, but you know, but what I determined to do, I remember talking to the people at City Council. I had reams of data on reentry, and I could show statistically that reentry housing is a safe option, and in fact, my doctoral work was showing that the community actually benefits from helping people reenter, but nobody cares about those sort of data. So what I determined to do was, how do you take a story like Titanic? Titanic is actually Shakespeare. They took the story of Romeo and Juliet and put it on a boat, and now we all cry when we see that story. So what I wanted to do was take recidivism, take Walter and take Reggie or take Jimmy, and put their story into some sort of emotional tale. And I came up with Daniel Robinson and his story going from a family of abuse, where even his pastor, when he was 16 years old, abused him, and he spent his whole life running to find forgiveness and love. And it's his coming of age story. I call it Forrest Gump. And what happened was the story, it was the same idea of second chances, because Daniel made a lot of mistakes because he had no training. And and with his mistakes, he kept getting up, but he kept reaching out for people to help him. And in the end, it's not a fairy tale ending, because life isn't that way. And he has to wrestle with all his mistakes. He has to wrestle with the people he's hurt. And just when you think it's perfect and he's reached that plateau, life always has a way of coming back at you. And how does he deal with that? So we deal with drug abuse, we deal with sexual abuse, we deal with racial issues, we deal with political instability. We deal with a single father raising children and how it's not supposed to be that way. And at one point, Daniel says he opened his house to a man who came from prison after 20 years for a crime he didn't commit. And that created a lot of tension in the community based on our story. But what happens is Daniel at one point says, here is this man who has a fourth grade education, and he spent 20 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. But yet he knows more about forgiveness than I do with 3 degrees. And here we see the roles reversed. And that to me is the real lesson, that sometimes your students, those you're trying to help, actually teach you. And what's happened is the book has gotten 23 awards.
Wow.
So, and if 5 of those are for inspirational fiction. So I'm very, very pleased that it's resonated with readers, that they're identifying with Daniel and saying, "I saw myself in that story."
Wow.
And it's a page turner. I'm biased, of course, but trust me, it's a page turner.
So good. That's so good.
Congratulations. 23
Yes,
awards is major.
it
Was this your
is.
first book?
First fiction book.
Wow.
Now, I will tell you,
Congratulations.
the model here is the same. I wrote it in 3 years, but then I had a piece of clearly a first draft. So I wrote it again, and I tried to publish it traditionally through New York, and it was rejected 200 times.
Wow.
And that finally you reach a point you say, I just should quit and throw it away. But I didn't. I hired an editor, and he and I worked for 2 years, and we put all the emotion into it that I've been wanting to express. And then in December, we published it through Don Quixote Press, because we all tilt at windmills. And that was the meaning of it. And so since then, we've sold over 6,000 copies and gotten the 23 awards. So I'm very pleased that others, the reviewers, are reading it and saying, this is a story that has me in it. And that's really all I wanted to do.
That's
So
major. You
good.
just don't quit and take no for an answer, and
Exactly.
I love it. Where
That's
can
No,
people
no.
find you in your book?
Well, the book is very easy to find. It's on Amazon. It's called Running as Fast as I Can. But you can also go to my website, johndavidgraham.com, and it'll link. It has my bio and such in there. You can even contact me if you want any conversations. So, but my whole object is exactly what we're doing here. I'm not doing it for the money. I don't want to be John Grisham. I just want to tell a story so that you and I can talk like this, and maybe somebody else will identify with it and say, I will try one more time. I won't quit. And that
Absolutely.
really is what it's all about.
It sure is. You're such an inspiration to many. I hope we can our listeners will go out and get your book and connect with you, connect with John, y'all, and thank you so much for coming on with us.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah,
I'm glad we worked through the technology. My granddaughter didn't have to come help me.
right.
No, you got
So,
this. This was
yeah,
incredibly
it sure
inspiring for
was.
me. It
Hmm.
definitely it definitely made me think differently about some things and not feel as discouraged because I think there's a lot of pressure for us to be this thing that we think we're supposed to be at a certain time or a certain age or place in life or whatever. But you are a testament that that's not the case. If we got about 3 minutes left, if you can say something or give some advice to somebody that maybe wanted to start a business similar to yours, like transitional housing or just like a safe place, because we have those for veterans, for elderly, reentry. What would you tell them to do? Like, what would be the first steps that you can tell them to
The first thing be required would be to be a nonprofit. And that means you have to register with the state and also the IRS.
do?
We were required to have 1 year's experience as a homeless shelter. So, and that meant having a board of directors. And I went 5 years without getting any salary. And we lived off my wife's income as a McDonald's manager.
Wow.
So there is no clear, easy path if you want to start your own business. But it took 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I still work that schedule because it's not work. It's you're doing what your life. It's a ministry. It's a calling. We don't tell our faith. We show it through our acts of mercy. And I found that my best sermons are the ones where I say nothing. I just offer somebody a place to sleep. So I would say partner with people like minded in the community and be quite candid. There are people out there. Ohio has gotten a reputation of being very conservative, but the truth is, it's the most progressive state I've found in rehabilitation. They are very, very ahead of the curve. And I've written to Columbus many times and told them that they have made me a better person by they've civilized me, I say, because they're most of the people I find in government are simply hardworking people, and they want me as boots on the ground. So if I could recommend anybody, I would say find what your passion is, ask the question, what is the need in the community, and how can I help meet that need?
Mm,
And don't go in and say, I'll do this. Say, what do you need?
There you
amazing.
go.
And
Thank
So
they're
you so
welcome to
good.
much.
contact me. The advice is free.
Thank
Wax
you so
on and
much.
wax off.
You're a blessing, Mr.
Absolutely.
Graham.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank you
so
so
much.
much.
Thank you
Thank you,
both. I
y'all.
appreciate it, ladies. Thank you. You've made my
Thank
night.
you.
You as well. Thank you.
Yes,
You guys take
absolutely.
care and thank you for watching.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.